The Fantasy Couriers are proud to be sponsored by Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy is the best and easiest place to play fantasy sports. There are games for everyone and in many sports. But right now, it's best ball season. You can draft all year long. The season never ends. You can participate in a slow draft with an 8-hour clock or a fast draft with a 2-minute clock. Stay tuned for some exclusive Fantasy Couriers best ball games during the offseason.
Yeah, so currently the biggest football game in town is Best Ball Mania 4. For those of you that don't know, Best Ball Mania 4 is a big best ball fantasy football tournament for the year. Last year, number 3 was the biggest tournament of all time. 500,000 entrants. That's a lot. That's a big fantasy pool right there. Prize pool of $10 million. That's a lot of money. So Best Ball Mania 4 will be with a total prize of $15 million.
So sign up now for Underdog with the fantasy code Couriers, and they will double your first deposit up to $100 cash. In case you missed that, when you make your first deposit of $10 or more, I didn't mention that before, but $10 or more, up to $100, you get $100 in free credit. Plus, I'll throw in a Fantasy Courier sticker. You sign up, I will email you Fantasy Courier swag. Oh, we got stickers now. Working on some t-shirts. You email me, I'll mail it to you. People that joined before, join one of these contests, and I'll send you a sticker as well.
$100 and a free sticker. Can't go wrong. So join Underdog today, and don't forget to use the code Couriers. A link is in the notes of the podcast. Now, on to the podcast. What is happening, fellow fantasy GMs? I am JJ Wang. He is the bearded one, DJ Dub. And with our powers combined, we are the Fantasy Couriers.
Well, JJ Wang, I missed, and actually our buddy Billy pointed it out to me because I'm a terrible friend. Happy birthday a week ago. Another year older, another year wiser, right?
Yeah, you say so. But yeah, I tend not to mention my birthday too often. Because I'm the type of person not to wish people a happy birthday.
Yeah.
So I kind of feel bad when people like go out of their way to wish me a happy birthday because I really don't ever return the favor. So I kind of just ignore the fact that it's my birthday.
You mean you're not that guy that goes every day and hits on the 32 Facebook friends you have, all of them wishes them happy birthday?
No. I think I did that one. I think I did that 1 year. I tried it, but then it was like, yeah, it's just not me, man.
January 8th came and you're like, screw this, I'm done.
Yeah, not my thing.
Yeah, I'm sitting there. I was talking to you before. I'm all sweaty, nasty. So if you're watching me on YouTube, we just got in. We call it Dove Family Fitness. All the family in the backyard doing We did 30 minutes of ghetto CrossFit stuff in the backyard with push-ups and stuff. It's good. If you could smell me right now, I'm like fuming through the computer, through the podcast. It's a good funk. But speaking of some good funk right now, I think one of the funkiest smelling things it's gonna mess up somebody's team in every league is the fact that Dalvin Cook, that dude still wants to get paid, and we're gonna draft all of our teams, and then August 20th or something silly, he is going to just jump in and he's going to jack up your team.
Yeah, so this means that running backs are kind of more important, right? Because you don't want your number one running back to be in position to lose their job to Dalvin Smith. So you got to go with like those top 10, top 12 running backs that have no fear of losing their job. So you got to get one of those guys, and hopefully the guy that Dalvin Cook replaces is your RB2. And it's a little bit easier to replace than your RB1.
I mean, currently the guys that I would fear for it the most are probably going to be about like Damian Harris, Devin, A-Chain, Mostert. In a small realm of possibility, I doubt it financially. Tony Pollard, I mean, a smart play if he wanted to get paid and be a running back. Arizona would be good, but who knows?
Yeah, it's always somebody we don't expect anything. Him go. He might go to Jacksonville. It's just you never know. What if he goes to New England? I mean,
dagger.
It's possible. I mean, he's going to end up somewhere nobody expects, and it's like I said, it's going to ruin somebody.
Yeah, I think the smartest team to make the play would be, but he wants multi-year. If Denver could get him on a 1-year deal and let Javonte Hill up, that would be a great play for that team. Which we'll talk about it later in the season. I still think that team's going to bounce back with the evil genius. So We have been doing Dynasty, just looking at Dynasty position by position. This week is wide receivers. Next week, it's my week. I got to remember to wear my T-shirt because it's almost tight end university, baby.
Is that a
So
whole
we'll find something
episode,
else to talk
man?
about after we do 5 minutes of tight ends next week.
Yeah, that's tough.
We'll figure it out, but it'll be tight ends and a little bonus dynasty stuff going on next week. But tight end university is coming up. I'm super excited, but we're gonna save my excitement for next week. I'll go dig out my shirt. This week I'm rocking the Dr. Pepper. That's much healthier after a workout. But if you're in a dynasty league, who is your number one receiver? Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase? And
Well,
why?
if for me, I mean, I guess in the consensus, it's Jefferson. I mean, if you think of it logically, he's been the guy for you. He kind of earned it. But after that, you kind of look at who's your personal favorite, right? So I mean, my personal favorite is Jamar Chase because I own more Jamar Chase than I do. That's just how fantasy works. But I think Justin Jefferson's probably, the wide receiver one. Jamar Chase isn't far behind, and there's several other receivers that aren't far behind them. So I think my guy right now is CeeDee Lamb. That's my guy. But yeah, I think I'd go Jamar Chase is my favorite, but I totally understand when people say Jefferson's the number one wide receiver. It's all subjective, man.
You just hit all three of what I was sort of thinking. Like I have Jefferson as my number one dynasty, and I am this close to moving Chase up to one. And I've been listening to a lot of other guys making the point, like we're splitting hairs. But if we're looking at Jefferson versus Chase, how many years can we say Kirk Cousins has? 2, 3, maybe. Then it's a rookie, maybe. But with Jamar Chase, you've got Joe Burrow for his entire career, unless something tragic happens. Joe Burrow is with Jamar Chase.
I mean, it's possible, but what if Minnesota decides to go a different route, maybe get like a veteran and it continues, for another 2 or 3 years? I mean, it's Justin Jefferson. Crooked, don't get me wrong. Kirk Cousins
Sorry.
is an awesome quarterback. I mean, he's always consistent. He's always put up good numbers for fantasy. But I think Justin Jefferson just might be one of those guys that, hey, he's going to be the top guy no matter really who the quarterback is, maybe. But it depends on how much they throw, too. And they come from that Rams offense, so they're going to throw a lot.
The guy you tossed in, then my number 3 is CeeDee Lamb. And
Yeah, I mean, some people might bring up AJ Brown. We'll talk about him a little later. So I mean, like I said, it's all subjective. It's who you like. It's who you got more shares of in fantasy. I mean, that's kind of the way you go.
yeah, I've got 2 Jeffersons, 1 Chase, 1 Lamb, and 2 Browns. So those are my top 4.
Yeah, so you kind of even. So you like all of them. So I mean,
I like whichever team's farther in the playoffs. That's who I'm rooting for that year. But yeah, I think I'm about this close to switching up to Chase for the time being for the Burrow factor, and Jefferson could flop back if we see Cousins plays 3 or 4 more years coming up, gets an extension, or they do sign some veteran who comes through as opposed to a rookie.
It also hurts Chase too that right now T. Higgins is such a valuable wide receiver. He puts up so many yards. Maybe Addison could eat into Jefferson's workload. That we're yet to see that, but I think T. Higgins eating into Jamar Chase's workload does affect him a little bit.
I don't know. I think it frees him up too a little bit too. He's not going to get the super double teams that like Jefferson would be, because
Like Jefferson, where it's going. Well, we're going to go to Jefferson. He's going to get that. He's going to get the. And with Cincinnati, they're like, well, we can go to Chase because that's where everybody thinks we're going. But we can also go to Higgins. So he might steal it. He might even steal a few touchdowns. So I mean, it's 1 or 2 touchdowns makes a huge difference as well.
That'll be interesting. So we'll start out the show today by going through my favorite sleeper, boom, bust, and rookie receivers for the year that I'm interested in. Sometimes, as the Couriers, our goal is sometimes to go off the beaten path, not to go. That's why I started with the JJ or Chase talk, because obviously favorite is Justin Jefferson or Chase, but I'm going to throw out a guy who I'm in love with. And he might be a guy I got to apologize to. I've always loved him, but I sold him last spring just for some rookie cash thinking that Jameson Williams would jump in. And all Amon-Ra St. Brown did was he proved that he was amazing. That he just killed it last year. He's now being taken in top 10s of dynasties. He had 1,100 yards, 6 touchdowns on that Lions team, and he can only get better. He has 6 games without Jameson Williams. he if he can get over 100 receptions for 1,100 yards, if he can up the touchdowns a smidge, and the Lions offense keeps rolling, I love some St. Brown. He is, I believe, my dynasty. He's my number 6 right now, actually.
I mean, I like Amon-Ra St. Brown. I mean, come out of nowhere. I mean, I know you've been a big fan of him a lot. I was never a huge fan. I didn't think he was going to turn into this, but I don't know how much better Amon-Ra can get. Like with, I don't want to say, I don't want to look down on Jared Goff and the Detroit Lions, but he's a great top 10, top receiver. But I think top 10 is about his limit. I don't see him breaking into, the top that top 8. I mean, that sounds crazy because it's only, like I said, only 1 or 2 touchdowns. But like I said, it's hard to say anything bad about Amon Sabra. He's been nothing but produce for like a lower first round receiver. I mean, he's killed it. Got nothing bad to say, but I mean, still hard to put myself into Jared Goff. Still hard to say.
I mean, golf. I thought golf killed it last year.
No, absolutely, yeah.
I was on the train. You know me. I was there.
Yeah.
I was rolling the golf train from the get go. I should have bought that T-shirt. I'd be still wearing it. But I think you throw in those 2. If he gets 2 more touchdowns this year, he's right there where I have him, and he's young. And golf, or I mean, Herndon Hooker's 2 years younger than Jared Goff, 3 years younger than Jared Goff. So I don't think that's the future as well as we're looking at it. My sleeper is a guy that he started out strong, and then last year he really made the New York Jets really mad. And I mean, his rookie year, 530 yards, 5 touchdowns, and 43 receptions. So he looked decent that year. And then last year the Jets hated him. That's Elijah Moore. So they traded him to the Cleveland Browns. And I mean, I guess all of this does hinge on Deshaun Watson, but Elijah Moore in Cleveland is going to be the slot receiver. He's going to be a guy that you can probably, unless you listen to the Couriers now, knowing how great he's going to be, you can get him on the cheap. I was just messaging a guy in one of our leagues going, of course, you have all the guys that I'm thinking of trading for, is Brad, the guy with all the money last year. He's like, yeah, if they're second or third year guys, I probably have them. I was like, because Elijah Moore is a guy I'm interested in just loading on as like a safety valve receiver.
Yeah, I mean, okay. I mean, I'm not a huge fan. I mean, he had that good stretch in his rookie season. Disappeared last year, whether it was injury, whether they were mad, or he just couldn't get on the field. That team was not really great. Garrett Wilson, of course, exploded. I mean, he didn't have any problems getting the ball. Goes to the Browns. Amari Cooper is probably still the number 1. Deshaun Watson's probably going to get better. I like People Jones as that deep threat, maybe as a replacement later. But like I said, possession guy, slot guy. I mean, maybe, who knows? Wide receiver 4 at this point. I'm not putting a lot of stock into it yet. We'll see. But he had a good stretch in his rookie season. A lot of people have.
I mean, and his rookie season only started 6 games, and he had 500 yards. So
yeah,
getting those spot starts was last year he just went doghouse city. So I think.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, if Deshaun Watson plays better, he's probably going to get the ball.
Yeah, and I'll disagree with Jones. I think he could be the number 2 guy there, with Cooper being the 1 for another year. And I mean, unless Tillman could be a sneaky guy too. Who knows?
I mean, he could be the number 2. I just like Peoples Jones better than I like Elijah Moore. I'm not saying Peoples Jones is going to be all that great. He could definitely be the number 2 wide receiver. Absolutely. It's not like there's a lot of competition there.
There's junk here, junk there. Throw your junk, see what sticks.
Good. You're better than Donovan Peoples Jones. Congratulations.
But it's better than David Bell. So my boom for this season is almost because he has to. He was a guy I was not fond of. The other year, I almost gave him away before he had his big year in Baltimore. One of our leagues, I was offering like 3rd round pick, 2nd round pick for Hollywood Brown. And then Hollywood Brown had that really good, the 91 reception year in Baltimore. Then he came over to Arizona. He only started 10 games last year. And so but there's not going to be any D-Hop. There's also not going to be any Kyler for a little bit. He could be getting thrown through by Thunes, is the rookie's name, I believe. But he's shown more than I ever thought he would for a little receiver. He's by de facto the 1. So either he booms or they don't throw for anything. Because who else are they throwing to? Wilson?
Hey, man. In order to be a good receiver, you got to have a quarterback to throw you the ball. That team's not going to have. I don't think the running game. They're going to lean a lot more on the run. Like quarterback may turn out to be something. Who knows? But right now, the quarterback situation is dreadful. He looked good last year when Kyler Murray was playing well, and then he got hurt. Kyler Murray got hurt. Obviously, Kyler Murray's not coming. He may never come back, so he may never be thrown to Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray may never be thrown to him
He'll be
again.
back.
But I find I find Marquise Hollywood Brown hard to be a boon this year with the situation that the Cardinals are in. If he does, wow, kudos to him, but it's going to be tough.
I mean, his competition is Rondell Moore, slot receiver, the Dorsch.
I know the competition is, but
I'm just looking at the sheer NFL system. The quarterbacks there have to throw for something, and a bad quarterback throws for 2,000 yards. And I don't see Rondell Moore or Greg Dorsch catching more than 500 yards. So there's 1,000 yards to Hollywood Brown and Zach Ertz.
I mean, is Zach Ertz not catching any balls?
We'll give him 2,500. We'll give Zach Ertz 2,600 yards for the quarterback combo there. And I mean, Kyler, I think from everything I'm hearing, Kyler's mid to late October is a realistic goal. And then we'll see if he comes back as Deshaun Watson or some miracle young guy. That'll be where we go from there. My bust, I always want to call this guy a bust, and then he always proves me wrong, but I think I have a JSN reason for this one, and that's Tyler Lockett. Tyler Lockett has been quietly one of the best receivers of the last, 4 or 5 years?
4 years.
He kills me every time I play.
Top 15 every year.
I mean, from 2019 to now, he's had a 1,000-yard season every year. And the year before that was 965. 10 touchdowns, 8 touchdowns, 10 touchdowns, 8 touchdowns, 9 touchdowns. I don't know how this dude does it. Nobody believes in him. If I were to name his stats on a random pod show to anybody, they would never guess that was Tyler Lockett. And he's done it at everybody talks about the weight of a receiver. He's a $182 and 5'10", so he's not a ginormous man. But man, Tyler Lockett has put himself together a career. But I think this is the year that it finally falls because number one, he'll be 30. He turns and he'll be 31 at the end of September. 2, JSN apparently is just killing it.
It's everybody
in shorts, but JSN is also he played really good college ball. He was supposedly the best of the 3 receivers on that whole house.
Look. JSN gets no bonus points for killing it in mini camps because that's why we drafted him.
How about
that's
college?
Why he got drafted. So he gets no bonus points for having a good mini camp. That's expected. So he is where he is. I mean, he should look good in shorts.
But coming out of college, so we'll go. Yeah, and pads, everybody looks good right now. The only person that's bad has been Will Levis, who couldn't hit a target. But we'll talk about him in a moment. But yeah, so I think Tyler Lockett finally falls off the cliff as he goes. And so, what do you expect of JSN this year? While I cough with a muted button.
I mean, it's. I mean, you still got DK Metcalf there. You just can't be Jigba's going to eat in the Lockett, and there's nothing else there. I mean, Metcalf is still, a 1,000-yard receiver. Lockett is a 1,000-yard receiver. I'm not really sure Geno Smith is like a 4,000-yard receiver here. I just don't see that happening. So I think all these guys are just going to suffer, from each other, and maybe none of them get 1,000 yards.
That's probably, yeah. So I think it's more of a drop there. I could see DK staying where he is, and these two sort of battling for the garbage and the tight ends.
I mean, if DK gets back up to the double-digit touchdowns, then he can be that top 15. But I think all these guys are going to suffer a little bit.
So my rookie this year is the guy that I have almost everywhere that I could possibly get. Puka Nacua. Most people listening to this podcast have no clue who Puka Nacua is, have never heard of Puka Nacua. I fell across him while doing various research for all my drafts when I had all the money. But Puka Nacua is a rookie receiver for the Los Angeles Rams, straight out of BYU. Man, I must have worked hard. I am coughing up a lung here. And last year, he had 625 yards, 48 receptions, 805 yards the year before. But he's looking to slot in possibly at that 2 or 3 role in a Sean McVay system on the back end of a Cooper Kupp year, of Cooper Kupp's career. He's got 2 or 3 years, but he's a guy who is 6'1", 210, decent size coming in, getting good repertoire built up with Stafford. He's a guy just to keep an eye out on. I mean, I could name one of the three guys. There's basically four big receivers. I could say Zay Flowers in Baltimore. Who knows how good they're going to pass? I could say Quentin
Dave Flowers ain't
Johnston.
a very big receiver.
Yeah, he's not. I meant big four, like in names. I could say Johnston in San Diego, but he can't catch the ball with his hands. He catches it with his body, and there's two really good receivers in front of him. They'll just get hurt, and he'll be in play. I could say JSN. We just talked about. I could say Addison. I could pick a number two, but I'll pick this guy here, just as someone different, more to point out as a guy to keep an eye on. And he is super cheap. So if you decide to get him, you might be able to get him in the fourth round of a rookie draft, late third round. You get him. Those are guys you probably drop anyway. So he's a guy just to maybe stash on a deeper bench, keep an eye on, see what happens.
Sure. I've yeah, I don't know a whole lot about the kid. And
You heard it first.
His college career was okay. I mean, so I guess we'll see.
You heard it first.
They still got the little guy from a few years ago, right?
Tutu Atwell.
Yeah, so
he's like your build with my height or something like that.
Yeah, but hey, like this guy, a guy you like caught your ear, and hopefully he pays out. I might pick him up just because you said it, just to keep it going.
You can't. We're in a lot of the same leagues, and I already got him.
Oh yeah, that's probably true.
Okay, so what you got for us this week?
So I got with wide receivers being in so abundant. There's a lot of teams with multiple good wide receivers. Go over the wide receiver competition here. Get some teams with multiple wide receivers that right there in the same area as each other. Get your thoughts on who's better. I'm gonna start with the trio. You mentioned Quinton Johnson earlier in LA. You got Keenan Allen, 31 years old, Mike Williams, 28, and the young Quentin Johnson. We both think Herbert will revert to what he did the year before last, being a little more healthier. So is the aging Keenan Allen still the number one? Mike Williams, we're waiting for it, but it's obviously not Quentin Johnson because he can't catch, right?
If anybody who knows me knows I love Keenan Allen. I suffered through the Keenan Allen injuries at the beginning of the career and just tallied on with him. I've traded a handful of my Keenans away. I mean, it's one of those things where until proven wrong, it's Keenan Allen. I love the fact that Herbert's rookie year, and I mentioned it on the podcast, that they looked at him and they said, dude, you got to stop throwing to Keenan Allen. You got to throw to other guys. And during that season, Keenan's stats went down a little bit at that point. But I think Herbert was like, why? He's the best guy. He's catching all my balls. Mike Williams, if I throw it to him, he's going to jump too high, fall, and get hurt. If they coach Johnston right, he could prove me wrong. But what they're saying they're working with him right now is on hand catching. Like the reason it came out about him not being able to catch the ball is because he uses his body versus his hands to do to catch, and that's the problem. So if they can get him there, he could perform sooner rather than later, or have to because Mike Williams gets hurt. But for me, it's Allen until he proves me differently.
Yeah, I still think Allen, even though he is older, it's amazing. Still through. He's never been that speed guy who's just always won because he's a better route runner.
Great kid.
I think, like I said, I think Herbert still likes him. So still going to go with Allen. Quentin Johnson may be giving Mike Williams a run for his money for that number 2 spot midway through the season. Going number 2. This is like my personal favorite. It kind of happened last year. I'm going to go to San Francisco. Word came out, Debo getting the money, wasn't as motivated, maybe a little overweight. So is a more motivated, in shape Debo reverting back to the wide receiver 1, or has Brandon Ayuk taken that spot and running with it?
That's a good question.
So this is my point. Debo had that great year. He had the 1,400 yards. His best year yet. That was the year that he did run, had the 8 touchdowns. He was the weapon, right?
Mm-hmm.
So right now he's not the weapon anymore. Christian McCaffrey is the weapon. And do you want Debo running the ball, or do you want McCaffrey running the ball? So that kind of goes away. McCaffrey's also a great receiver, so Debo's going to have to resort back to maybe not getting as many touches with McCaffrey. Well, all of them aren't going to get as many touches. But I think at the end of the day, Ayuk is still the 1,000-yard receiver, still that 8 touchdown guy. I think he's definitely not in the doghouse like he supposedly was earlier last year. So I'm thinking Ayuk stays.
I think you're right. I think you've convinced me. I was sort of trying to figure out a world where he is better because I'm not a you know me, I'm not a huge Ayuk guy because every time I had Ayuk, he sucked. But now that I don't have him, he'll do great. So yeah, I think with that being said, the way it's set up, Ayuk will be better. Do I think either of them are wide receiver ones? Not necessarily. I think they could both hit wide receiver two. Probably Ayuk a smidge higher than Debo. But I mean, Christian McCaffrey to me is still running back one, and that's going to really affect everything else. Whether it's Brock Purdy, whether it's your boy Trey Lance, and George Kittle's what probably tight end 4, 5, 6 somewhere in there. So that's a bunch right there. So they'll take away as well.
Yeah, I agree. More of course, you guys. So I'm going to switch over to the Eagles. The Eagles ended up with two top 10 wide receivers here.
You're so
AJ Brown was number 4, I believe. Devontae Smith was like amazingly number 9. But looking at the numbers, AJ Brown was definitely the better wide receiver at the beginning of the year. Second half of the year, Devontae Smith kind of closed the gap a little bit. He had great second half of the year. AJ Brown was still a little better, but going into this season, maybe the gap closes. Is Devonta Smith creeping any closer? Because it's hard to have back-to-back top 10 wide receivers.
I think they still can. I think there's two teams that will have. If I had to, let me see, dynasty rankings will be a smidge different, but I think there are two teams that have the possibility of having it, and I
The same
have it
ones as last year, I guess.
same two as last year. Miami and Philadelphia both have two receivers that could do it. If there's two, I don't think there's any other team in
So,
the NFL that could do it. But I have
so let's
Smith
look at
12. Smith's
let's
12.
look at let's look at Miami as well. Do either one of those number 2 receivers take over that number 1 spot this year, or does it stay the same?
No, I don't think so. I think Tyreek is out to just prove the world that he's the greatest thing. Like dynasty wise, I have Waddle ranked higher, even though I mean we're supposed to go in a 3-year cycle. Tyreek said he's got 3 years. Waddle's my 5, Tyreek's my 8. Devonta Smith's my 12, and AJ Brown's my 4. So we're splitting hairs, you know, with those guys. But I think Tyreek's gonna of those 4. I could see Tyreek being the best, followed by AJ Brown, and then Waddle, Smith. Those two, I could see being relatively close, to be honest.
Yeah, it's hard. There's a lot of yards to go around, so we'll see. I'm hoping Brown or Smith overtakes Brown just because the Smith guy. And
And
it's
he's not
fun.
this big. I like rooting for guys that aren't supposed to be doing what they're doing. It just makes it fun.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, looking at a picture, he just doesn't look like he belongs in the NFL.
No,
But yeah, kudos. So I'm going to go down to Jacksonville. I'm looking at Trevor Lawrence here, hopefully taking that next step. A lot more passing yards. Hopefully the offense opens up a little bit. We got Calvin Ridley and Christian Kirk. Kirk amazingly finished as a top 12 wide receiver. Second half of the season, not all that great. It was really not great at all. I only had like 1 touchdown in the second half. Calvin Ridley hasn't had any touchdowns in 2 years. But the last time he did score one, he looked really, really good doing it. So is Calvin Ridley the number 1 guy, or are you sticking with Kirk until we see it from Ridley first?
if I had to pick one, I'd probably pick Calvin Ridley. Um, I don't. I think Trevor Lawrence is going to have a stellar year, but I don't think any of his receivers necessarily are going to be wide receiver ones. I think one of those guys could be, if Trevor Lawrence kills it, one of those guys is probably a 2, the other one's a 3. I'm going to go with the pedigree of Ridley. Kirk is an overachiever. Like he's a great receiver. I think we loved him when he was in Arizona and not doing crap, and then he had the good year and he got paid more than he should have, and then just showed us wrong. So I wouldn't be surprised if he overdid, if he outplayed Calvin Ridley. But I think I'll go with I would bet on Calvin Ridley. Did you like that?
Oh, you're right. That was pretty. If you wouldn't have said anything, I would not have caught that. But that was a pretty good one. I'll give you that one. Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna stick with Kirk here. I think he proved it. He still had the bad second half of the season, but we'll see. Ridley's. I don't know. Like I said, 2 years is a long time. We'll see. So I got 2 quick hitters here. We're gonna stay right here in DC with the Washington Commanders. We got Terry McLaurin, 27 years old, Jahan Dotson, 21. McLaurin's I'm not arguing the number 1. He's still the number 1 wide receiver. Dotson looked incredibly good the last year in stretches. He got hurt, but when he did play, he was scoring touchdowns and looked good. Maybe Sam Howell, hopefully, is that guy. Well, hope a guy. No, we just need Sam Howell to be a guy, right?
Yeah.
It's gonna be hard to support, two wide receivers here in Washington, but McLaurin is definitely the guy, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think Dotson, in Dynasty, grab him. I
Yep.
mean,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
McLaurin's only what, 29? So you still got
27. He's 27. He's only 27.
He's only 27? Why do I think he's
Yeah,
older?
27.
So I mean, 27 is a wide receiver prime, right? 27's when wide receivers are in their prime. So McLaurin's proven throughout his career, as everybody sort of like, he didn't get drafted very high in the rookie drafts. He did, but then all he did was kill it on
Yep.
terrible teams. So he's falling in that Keenan Allen kind of mold. Until you prove me something different, I'm going to go with.
Yeah. Yeah, I think McLaurin is a consistent top 15 guy. I'm hoping Dotson does take away a little work. I'm more of a fan of Dotson at this point, but hey,
Do you have
turning
Dotson on
into
your
a
teams?
yes, I do. I'm
Okay.
turning into a Commanders fan, as we speak more and more. So, I mean, we'll see how that goes. Another one, I think this is kind of the hardest one to pick. I mean, because I feel like this is 50-50 here. And that's in Pittsburgh. We've got Deontay Johnson and George Pickens. I think Pickens is listed as the number one receiver.
Really?
I believe so here. So, and Deontay Johnson still gets all the targets, but it's crazy. Deontay Johnson didn't have any touchdowns last year. I can't see that repeating, but I also see Pickens picking up his end a little more. I'm leaning I don't want to say this, but I'm leaning Johnson here for more of
Me
the
too.
wide receiver one. Is that where you're headed?
Oh yeah, I'm going Johnson. I'm going with where the balls are going. Like he was peppered. Like Johnson, if I just shut down the site, but Johnson, he's a target hog. So
Yeah,
I mean, the problem is, I don't think. I mean, he's Miles Sanders, right? In the
yeah,
grand scheme, he had 0 touchdowns.
zero
He had
touchdowns.
8
Yeah,
receptions from the rookie last year, but he had 147 targets. There's no way that he's going to miss 61. Is that right? 61 catches this year. If you're getting 140 targets, I mean, the year before 167. I mean, he's had 140 targets the last 3 years plus. So until then, like, to me, I love. We're both George Pickens fans, and we liked him coming out of college. Thought he'd do great. I am hoping that he doesn't, and I said it before, I just have Odell feeling about him. He's going to be known for the beautiful catch, and that's it. I mean, I hope not. I mean, I think the Steelers are going to have a better passing game, but when you're peppered like that, you're number one. I mean, you got to have better than a 58% catch percentage, right?
yeah. I mean, maybe that's a little bit of Pickett. So maybe Pickett gets a little better. Like I've said it multiple times. The first half of the season for Pickett was dreadful. Second half got better. Maybe third or the second year gets even better. I'm hearing good, like you said, you're hearing good things in camp. The Pittsburgh offense is looking better, but offenses should. So we'll see. Yeah, that's the last one I got. I mean, we could probably find a few more, but like I said, everybody's got good wide receivers.
Yeah, I mean, wide receiver. Right, I think the thing that as commissioners you got to think about, with the amount of wide receivers that are good, and with it being a passing game, and I think you started it with some leagues we did recently, that wide receivers really need to be thought about when you're setting up teams. If you're going to not do it like we do, we got a couple where it's like running back, wide receiver, flex, 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 flex. But if you're setting up that, you should add that extra wide receiver, because wide receiver is so deep that you could have a bench receiver that's getting 1,000 yards. But if
Yeah,
you
that's
add
why
a third or fourth receiver,
that's when I decided to do the initial Dynasty League. I went with 4 wide receivers because I just feel like there's just so many of them that you eventually be leaving a good one on the bench.
and also with a dynasty team, you build wide receivers first.
Yeah, I mean, I have lately, yeah.
Yeah, because they last longer.
Yep.
It's just, I mean, a lot of people are on the same kind of boat, that you get rid of the wide receiver, you put a wide receiver in there because they last longer, and you can plug and play running backs. If I had Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, and AJ Brown, I could play JJ Wang and DJ Dub in the backfield and still beat most people on every week with our 0 points. Like I just think they're
Slow down, big fella. I mean,
okay. Not really, but but the point realistically, you could get away with playing some scat back, so Jerick McKinnon on his regular week, or like.
But you don't feel comfortable playing Jerick McKinnon.
If I had those three stud receivers, I would feel more comfortable.
Because Jerick McKinnon, there's a good chance Jerick McKinnon gives you 2 points. And 2 points from any position, I don't care how good your other positions are, it hurts.
Yeah, but 2 points also with a chance the other guys are going to get you like 40 on any given week. It's I'd rather have a team of stud receivers.
Yeah, I would too, but I would also rather have a team where I'm not relying on Jerick McKinnon to be my running back.
Oh yeah, I think everybody would agree with that one. That's not that's a no-brainer. He was just a name. I don't think he's a good.
Yeah, I got you.
Some scat back that you get later in the rounds you could roll with as we're doing it. Before you give your wisdom, if anybody has I got some cool news. We are now on YouTube Music. They had YouTube Music. YouTube bought out Google Music a while back, and they just added in a podcast thing. And all I really had to do is take our YouTube videos and click podcast, and it popped all of them in there. So now if anybody's I don't know anybody that's a YouTube Music guy. It might be old Google Music. Like everything uploads automatically in there. But we're on YouTube Music now, and if you want to see a great reel, I don't know if you watched it yet. I continued my homage to Will Levis this week, and ate a banana.
Yeah. I think I tried to watch it, but where I was at, I didn't have very good service, and I don't think I've gotten back to that. I'm not very reliable. So.
I will eat a banana with a pill on before I'll drink a cup of mayonnaise coffee ever again in my entire life.
I could understand that. Yeah,
it wasn't as terrible as I thought it would be. It wasn't delicious, but it wasn't.
Terrible. Monkeys do it. Monkeys do it all the time. Man.
Well, don't they squeeze the tip and pull it down? They're smarter than us. They're smarter than Will Levis apparently, because you just can't peel a banana.
Wait, it's kind of easy to peel a banana, man. Just peel it, dude. Hey, whatever floats his boat.
Yeah, it was a fun little thing to continue because I just keep getting Will Levis. I don't know how it happens.
I'm glad you like him. So yeah, I got my words of wisdom here. This one's kind of for you. I kind of want to apologize to someone. Like I kind of want to. It's going to hurt for me to say. So I kind of want to apologize for Tua. I've been kind of rough on him lately. Like so, I understand Tua's not a bad quarterback. He's not. But Tua's not a top 5 quarterback. Tua's not a top 6 quarterback. Tua's not a top 7 quarterback. In my opinion, I think Tua, is that 11, 12, 13 quarterback. He has a big upside. He has huge games. I understand that. But like I said, I just wanted to apologize. I've been a little hard. I'm not a fan of Tua. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, if I have him on my team, I wouldn't be disappointed. But I'm just not a huge fan. So, as always, trust yourself and trust the process.